Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Guys of Magic. This is Hunter and Shane. Say what up, Shane.
What up, nerds?
This time we are back taking a look at another Precon upgrade from Murders at Karlov Manor. That's right, Shane. You are doing the Deadly Disguise. That is the Naya deck from the newest set. Before we get started and talk about all of your additions and stuff, I just want to remind the people to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. A lot of you watchers are not subscribed. It would be really cool if you hit that button. Also, like the video if you liked it. But, Shane, before we get started, talk to me about the Phase Commander and kind of what the direction of the deck is doing.
I'm going to be sticking with the face commander out of the box, which is Kaust, Eyes of the Glade. It is a red or white and a green for a 2/2 Dryad Detective. It says whenever a creature you control that is turned face up this turn deals damage to a player, draw a card. It also has a tap, turn target face down attacking creature you control face up. This deck is going to be taking advantage of the new Cloak and Disguise mechanic, which is just kind of another take on Morph and Manifest. But we're going to be playing cards face down and attacking, and then turning them face up, drawing cards, doing some damage. It's going to be fun.
That's really cool, man. I was very excited to see this deck revolve around flipping cards face up from face down and just kind of surprising the enemy. Like, surprise! You thought this was a 2/2, now it's a giant creature. I'm terrified of this deck, and I'm really excited to see what you do with it. So, Shane, let's go ahead and get started with all of these great additions. Looking like we're starting with some creatures first. Talk to me. What's going in this deck?
Well, since the new mechanic is coming out of this set, Murders at Karlov Manor, I wanted to go through that set and see what new toys the deck might get. So that's what I did. And this first set is all creatures coming out of this new set. The first one is Delny, Streetwise Lookout. For 2 and a white, it's a 2/2 human scout. Creatures you control with power 2 or less can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. It also says if an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, that ability triggers an additional time. This is just a fantastic card for anything that's going to be morph related or disguise related, and it's going to allow all of your little dudes that's coming in to be unblockable by all the bigger things on the board. This card's going to pull a lot of weight in the deck, I think.
Oh, yeah. You got those unblockable 2/2s, and then after blocks, you can use your commander to flip it face up.
The next card I want to throw in was Pyrotechnic Performer. For 1 and a red, you get a 3/2 Viashino Assassin. It's got disguise for 1 red. And it also says when Pyrotechnic Performer or another creature you control is turned face up, that creature deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So that's going to slap everyone at the table. I do believe this card is also going to pull a ton of weight in the deck. I'm also going to be throwing in Aurelia's Vindicator. For 2 and 2 white, you get a 4/2 Angel. They have Flying, Lifelink, and Ward 2. They have Disguise for X, 3 and a white. When Aurelia Vindicator is turned face up, exile up to X other target creatures from the battlefield and or creature cards from the graveyard. When Aurelia Vindicator leaves the battlefield, return the exiled cards to their owner's hands. So it's just a nice little, could be a balance effect, or it could also just be, hey, a lot of my cool things died from my graveyard. I'm going to get them back to my hand, or, target your opponents. It's got a lot of versatility to it, I think.
Yeah, I like this card a lot. When we first saw it in spoiler season, I was very high on it. I think this fits perfect in your deck.
And the last card from the new set I'm going to be putting in is Unyielding Gatekeeper. For 1 and a white, it's a 3/2 Elephant Cleric with Disguise for 1 and a white. It says when Unyielding Gatekeeper is turned face up, exile another target non-land permanent. If you control it, return it to the battlefield tapped. Otherwise, its controller creates a 2/2 white and blue detective creature token. So you've seen a lot of these abilities that kill or just remove a creature and give somebody another creature and to replace it. I don't think that's that big of a deal. Giving somebody a 2/2 is not that bad. Also, if it's your own creature that you're saving from a kill spell, you just bounce it. That's fantastic too. So I think this is another very versatile card.
Yeah, man, I like every single card you've added so far. All these new cards. This deck in specific, I feel like geared really towards a new mechanic, and there is plenty of those you could see right here from the main set to go into the deck. But those are the new creatures. What about an older creature?
I wanted to add one more creature, and that one creature is Mentor of the Meek. For 2 and a white, it's a 2/2 human soldier. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. Since all of our creatures that you're going to be disguising are coming into the field as a 2/2, this will just trigger off of everything you play, basically. So if you have that extra 1 mana, now all of your creatures are going to be drawing you a card, and I think that's really strong.
Yeah, that is super strong. White card draw. It's perfect.
Let's
Mentor of the Meek
go.
is really powerful. All right. Are those all the creatures?
Those are all the creatures I wanted to add.
Okay, so let's move on. Looks like we have a non-permanent spell here. What's this instant?
This is going to be a great way to just close out a game. If you draw this card, you're probably going to win. I'm going to be putting in a Chroma's Will for 3 and a white. It's an instant that says choose one. If you control a commander as you cast the spell, you can choose both. Creatures you control gain flying, vigilance, and double strike until end of turn. And or creatures you control gain lifelink, indestructible, and protection from all colors until end of turn. This is just all of my things now are going to be huge and smack you in the face for double. This card's nuts.
Yeah, I can only imagine if you flip over all those cards and then play this, you're like, uh-oh. I
Uh-oh.
think you might have just won the game.
And it also could be used as a protection spell. So, if someone's trying to wipe the board with damage, this is just a good way to protect the board. So, it's again,
Yeah.
versatile card.
Chroma's Will. It's perfect. All right, so let's talk about some of the artifacts you put in this deck.
I like to throw in some artifacts that I think are just really going to help with the strategy. And the first of which is Dream Chisel for 2 mana. It's an artifact that says face down creature spells you play cost 1 less to play. So instead of costing 3, now they cost 2. That's, I think, great. Just making all your stuff even cheaper.
Yeah, I've never even heard of this card before, but yeah, it's really good in your deck.
Well, you probably haven't heard of it because it's very niche. But yay, this deck is niche. I also wanted to throw in Forsaken Monument for 5 mana. It's a legendary artifact. Colorless creatures you control get +2/+2. It also says whenever you tap a permanent for a colorless, add an additional colorless. And it also says whenever you cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. So, like I keep saying, all of our morph slash disguise creatures are colorless. So you'll be gaining life off of that. And they're all going to be 4/4s now instead of 2/2s.
Yeah, once again, a really good card that goes in this deck. Man, you are knocking it out of the park with all these cards, man. I am getting pretty terrified of what this deck's going to look like at the end.
I'm very excited to play it.
Well, let's move on to the enchantment section. Looking like just one here.
Yeah, the deck already is pretty heavy in enchantment, so I didn't want to bulk it up too much. But I just think that this enchantment is really good for the deck. So I wanted to throw in Elven Chorus for 3 and a green. It's an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. It also says you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. And it also says creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color. The beautiful thing about this card is you can cast creature spells on top of your deck for the disguise cost. So now you have access to all those creatures, and they just come in as their disguised or morphed side. And then also at the bottom of that, having all your little 2/2s, if you don't want to attack with all of them, they can now tap for mana. I think this card just did a lot for you.
Yeah, coming from the Lord of the Rings set, I think this is one of the more powerful enchantments that were printed from that set. And yeah, that's going to be crazy for the amount of mana that you're going to be producing.
Yeah, it's great. Great card advantage, dude.
And finally, I'm seeing the land section here. What do we add here for the lands?
So for the upgrade, I did have a bit of a budget left over, and I was like, hey, I love adding in shocklands. And the deck out of the box doesn't have the strongest of lands. So I went and threw in all 3 of the shocklands that would fit. So Sacred Foundry, Stomping Grounds, and Temple Garden. They're all going in the deck. They're all lands that say they enter battlefield tapped unless you pay 2 life. And they're fantastic. They tap for either a red white, a red green, or green white. And put them in if you got them.
Yeah, they're all their respective basic land types too. So if
Very
you had
true.
anything to go search for a basic land type, or you had to show a basic land type, then these are really good in your hand. As well as they just got a reprint from Ravnica Remastered, the set before this one, and the Clue edition of this set itself. So shocks are pretty affordable right now. Go out and get as many as you can while they're going to be cheap.
Yeah. As brewers, I know we all love these to be cheaper and more affordable to get in all of our upgrades.
hmm All right, man. So is that be all of your additions to this deck?
That is it.
Okay. Well, additions comes removals. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it. What are we cutting out of this deck?
So I wanted to make room for some of those creatures I was throwing in because I didn't want to add too many creatures and just, have an abundance of creatures. So this first group is just going to be taking out some creatures to make room for them. The first of which is Croson Colossus. It is 6 and 3 green for a 9/9 beast. It has Morph for 6 and 2 green, and that's pretty much it. I do understand that this will come onto the field. You can pay 3, flip it with your commander, and have a 9/9. But for me, at the end of the day, it's just going to be a 9/9. There's no evasion, and it gets blocked by a 1/1. It's just kind of a bummer, you know? We have
Hmm.
much stronger cards, and I mean, I get it, but I cut it. I'm also cutting Imperial Hellkite for 5 and 2 red. It's a 6/6 flying dragon. It's got more for 6 and 2 red. And it says when it's turned face up, you may search your library for a dragon card, reveal it, put it into your hand. If you do, shuffle your library. Fun fact, there is only one other dragon in this deck. So it's basically just going to get that one dragon. Once again, I get that all of these cards, you know, you don't have to pay the morph if you have your commander out. But if you don't, that's just kind of ridiculous. And all it's doing is going to get one other dragon. So I cut it.
Yeah,
And that,
that's very interesting that it's just gonna grab the other dragon, which is what you're cutting here.
yeah, I was going to say, that's a segue into that. I will be cutting the other dragon there because it didn't feel right to cut it and not the dragon it was grabbing. So I'm cutting Scourge of the Throne for 4 and 2 red. It's a 5/5 dragon with flying and dethrone. And it also says whenever Scourge of the Throne attacks, for the first time each turn, if it's attacking the player with the most life or tied for the most life, untap all attacking creatures. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Now, I completely understand that is a bonkers ability, and you will maybe win the game if some lets you do that. But whenever I play cards that are kind of like this, people always have removal for them, and it just felt right that if I'm getting rid of the one dragon that goes against the other dragon, I'm gonna cut it. It also has nothing to do with uh, what we're trying to do. There's no flipping here. It's just kind of, I think, in the deck because it needed to go with the other dragon that had a morph. That's my only thought, right? Like they threw in a dragon with morph that got a dragon, so they had to get one more dragon in the deck. So I cut it.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes you gotta cut the heavy stuff off the top, and Scourge of the Throne is 6 mana, so
And then the last creature I'm going to be cutting is Tisak Judas Hellhound. For 3 in a red, it's a 3/3 elemental dog. It has Unleash, and it says other dogs you control have Unleash. And it says creatures you control with counters on them have haste. And it also says when it attacks, add a red for each attacking creature. There aren't that many dogs in this deck. You know, I don't fully understand it. Creatures with counters on them, I mean, there are a couple that give you counters. I'll give you that. But I think it was just there for the whole like making red when it attacks to help you flip some stuff, maybe. I don't know. I wasn't completely sold on this card in the theme that we're or in the strategy that we're going for, so I cut it out.
yeah, Tasaka's a new dog. I actually put it in the Raining Cats and Dogs deck because I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
but
"Whoa,
it's great.
that's really cool." You just gotta keep in mind, though, if you do keep this card, you're adding a red for each attacking creature. That red goes away at the end of combat, so
That's yep.
it is a
You gotta
bummer, but,
you gotta use
yeah,
it right then.
exactly. I can see why you cut this out if there's not a lot of dogs, but
Yeah,
cool
if you're going
legend.
dogs, go for it, dude.
Okay, are those all the creatures?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, let's move on to some non-permanent spells. Once again, stepping up with another instant.
I'm only gonna be cutting one instant, and that one instant is Unexplained Absence. It's 3 and a white for an instant. For each player, exile up to one target non-land permanent that player controls. For each permanent exiled this way, its controller cloaks the top card of their library. Cloaking is just manifesting. It's a cool removal spell. It's gonna be hurting you as well. Hopefully, you'll be able to capitalize on it more than your opponent will. I get that. I kind of the way I thought about it was the unyielding gatekeeper was kind of taking the spot of this because it's gonna be doing something, but only to opponent now, not yourself as well. I don't know. And for 4 mana, I just didn't see it doing that much for me, so I cut it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting card. I like the art here, um, but I can see why you cut it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, those are the instants. How about some sorceries?
Yeah, out of the box, this deck came with 4 board wipes, I wanna say, and I thought that was a bit high, so I wanted to cut one of the ones that I wasn't a big fan of, that being Austere Command. For 4 and 2 white, it's a sorcery that says choose 2, destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less, destroy all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. It's really flexible. I do like that, and I also like the fact that you can destroy everything that is 4 or greater when you have all your little tutus. So that's really cool. But like I said, there are other board wipes, and they're all basically the same thing. They're all going to be doing that same destroy 3 or greater or 4 or greater, that kind of element. So I just don't think that you needed that many board wipes in the deck, honestly. And this was the one that got the chopping block.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the other sorcery that I'm getting rid of is Decimate. It is 2, a red and a green for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact, destroy target creature, destroy target enchantment, and destroy target land. I think I've gotten rid of this card a couple times now out of precons. It's just how restrictive it is, being there needs to be exactly one of every of these things for it to work. And I get it. It's a game of EDH. Most likely you're going to have artifacts and creatures and lands. But if there just happens to not be an enchantment and you need to remove something, you're just sitting around with this card in your hand, kind of going like, cool, hope someone plays an enchantment now.
I totally get that. There's a couple cards in Magic that do this similar effect of you have to hit a certain threshold before the card even works, and Decimate is one of them. I could see why you cut this out.
Yeah, get it out of
Get it out of there. Speaking of getting out of there, what is this artifact we're removing?
Since I'm adding 2 artifacts, I wanted to get rid of at least 1, so it wasn't, again, getting too many in there. And the one that I cut was Ransom Note. It's for 1 it's 1 mana for an artifact clue. When Ransom Note enters the battlefield, surveil 1. You can pay 2, sacrifice Ransom Note, choose 1. Cloak the top card of your library, go target creature, or draw a card. A lot of things you could do. It just, I don't know, it didn't do, even though it's 3 different modes, I was reading this card and I didn't want it in the deck. I feel like it was kind of a, I get it. You could draw a card off it. That's probably what I want to be doing. But that's 3 mana at that point. Like, ugh, I didn't like it.
Yeah, I cut this out of mine too, being the Revenant Recon deck. Me and David had a conversation about this card, and it's doing one thing only for everybody's deck. So I'm the Surveil deck, David's the Goat deck, you're the Cloak deck, and I guess the other one would be the Draw card. But
Eh,
a one-time effect is just not that good.
yeah, and I get it. You can surveil and hope that the top card is good. That's why you can cloak it. But yeah, I guess the draw card's kind of like you just fall back on that plan, and that's what I would
Hmm.
probably be doing. But it's a big meh card for me.
It definitely is. And finally, we saw you added the 3 shock lands. What are the lands we're taking out of the deck?
I'm gonna take out my, first of all, 3 least favorite lands in almost every precon. That'll be all the temples that come in those decks. So Temple of Plenty, Temple of Triumph, and Temple of Abandon. I just don't like these cards. They always come in tapped. You can scry, that's cool. And then they can tap for the respective colors of a green and a white, a red and a white, or a red and a green. And that's cool. They're just, I don't like them. I cut them out almost every deck, and they were easy replacements there. And since I did add only 3, I'm going to be cutting 1 additional land. So we're bringing the land count down from 37 to 36, which I think is a super fine number. I always hover around 36 anyways. But that last card I'm cutting is Mosswort Bridge. It's a land with Hideaway 4, and it enters battlefield tapped, always. It can add a green, and you can pay a green, tap it. You may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if creatures you control have total power 10 or greater. Yeah, it's cool. I feel like if you have power 10 or greater in this deck, you're probably already in a very commanding position. So it's a bit of a win more card. And it always comes in tap. I got it out, dude. I don't like it.
Yeah, I feel like you won't have power integrator for very often just because you're cloaking and disguising things and they're making them 2/2, so you have to have at least 5 of those on the field. I mean,
That's true
granted,
too.
you have 5 of those on the field, they're all flipped face down and you start flipping them face up. I think you're definitely winning at that point. But
Yeah,
yeah, the hideaway cards, especially when it comes to the land ones, are just not that good in my opinion either. All right, Shane, is that going to do it for this entire upgrade?
that's it. That's my Deadly Disguise $100 upgrade.
I love it. Once again, I do love this deck a lot. But before we wrap things up, we gotta ask. We gave you $100 to build this deck. What was your total amount of money you spent on all of these additions?
At the time of recording, we are doing this before the set is fully out. So cards can fluctuate since I did add 4 creatures that are going to be in the main set. But right now, the deck is going to cost you $93.68 with these ads.
All right, got a little wiggle room for anybody that wants to go add some more spicy cards.
Yeah, and then I'm sure once the set comes out, they might even drop more. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe that Delny might go up. That's a pretty good card.
We'll see. Yeah.
But yeah, that is killer. Do you have any final thoughts before we go ahead and wrap things up?
Yeah, I think Kaust is a really cool commander. I like that it's utilizing the whole morph slash disguise mechanic and just any kind of face down, face up. I think that's really cool. And I like that he can do it at instant speed. So we'll see. And he also is so cheap, man. Forgot to mention that. I mean, we mentioned it, but like that is a commander that's going to be coming out over and over and over. 2 mana, dude.
Oh yeah, and for a 3-color deck for 2 mana, that's really
Awesome.
good.
Awesome.
Uh, all right, well that's gonna do it for us. If you guys wanted to see Shane's entire deck list, don't forget to check the link in the description for our Moxfield account. It's there. Go play test it. It's a lot of fun. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, so you're keeping up to date. We will be doing the $300 upgrades to these as well, so you don't want to miss those. Like this video if you liked it. In the description, you will also find links to our social media accounts. That's TikTok, that's Instagram, and Twitter. Also, big shout out to all of our Patreon subscribers who are on the screen right now. Thank you so much for your extra support. It means the world to us. If you guys wanted to check out and see what they've been seeing that you haven't seen, subscribe to our Patreon. It's also in the link in the description. And until the next video, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.
Bye bye.